4987. Michelangalone. Error code 400. Chapter 4, Bug Busters. Notes. Alright everybody, I am BAKKK. Sorry it's been over a month. This chapter took way longer than I thought it would, taking like 15 pages in my Google Docs. So everyone put their big boy pants on, we're in for a long run. Also yeah, it's an episode rewrite. But don't worry, I tried to still make it enjoyable to read. Also ignore any of my failed attempts to make jokes. Enjoy. See the end of the chapter for more notes. Chapter text. Raph, I have no means to question your leadership. But why do we have to do this again? Donnie asked from his side of the vehicle, which his brothers named the Turtle Tank. Dispute Donnie's protest of naming his creation the Donnie Buggy. The news said, this hotel was full of Osquitas, and we're hero. This is exactly what heroes do. Raph responded as they approached the hotel the news referenced. As they approached the front of the hotel, humans were running away screaming as they exited the building. Raph, Leo, and Donnie exited their vehicle, and we were standing in front of the exit. Alright gang, we're suited up, so let's get down to business, Raph told his brothers before they burst through the door to the hotel. Inside they saw what seemed to be hundreds of Osquitos. Raph pushed forward with his brothers right behind him. Okay Bugs, it's just you and us, he cried, reading his bug zapper that came with the suits Donnie had made. And me. They all turned to see who had just spoken. I'm here too. A bellhopper must have been behind the counter and somehow managed to avoid the Osquitas. Leo, as the face man, immediately jumped up to confront him. Raph turned to Donnie. I thought you said everyone in the building was evacuated. Donnie looked at his wrist, where a smaller tablet than the one he usually wore brightened up. That's what the report said. He probably just stayed because he works here. I don't think we have to worry though. It seems like Leo's got a handle on it, he replied. Raph just rolled his eyes and got into position. Leo, who has now returned, joins the two. Raph began to explain the plan to the two. Alright, remember the plan. Attract, smash, zap, smash, bash, smash, he said, just about to charge a bug, but he knocked over a nearby vase in the process. The bellhopper immediately panicked, jumping over the counter and running to catch it before it collided with the floor. He managed to make it just in time and put it back in place. He turned to face Raph. Don't break anything. The boss will have my hide, he said, frustrated at the teenager. A few Osquitas catch the commotion and fly over to the bellhop, trying to sting him. He frantically waves his hand, every running off. Leo, taking notice of this, pipes up. I say we revise Raph's plan to make sure this guy doesn't get mutated. Raph wasn't listening to him. The way he saw it was if they got rid of the bugs, they saved the dude. So he just simply replied, stick to the plan. And just like that, they all split. Donnie mainly observed the Osquitas, waiting for the perfect time to use the capsules he had made. He sees how one Osquitas had strayed from the others. It was the perfect time to strike. All right Bugs, check in time is now o'clock, he cried, just as he was about to throw the capsule in the corner of his eye when he saw his two brothers fighting. Another fight. They were sure to put a crack in his new suits, he thought to himself. In the moment's distraction, his body had already made up its mind and threw the containment unit. The ball missed the Osquito by an inch, hitting the wall instead. Donnie groaned in frustration, about to reach for another one, when the same one that Donnie had thrown was hurtling back towards him. The ball hit him, trapping him inside. Donnie is taken aback by the event and stumbles backward in the ball, which only causes the ball to start rolling and bouncing around. Next thing he knew, his brothers got caught in the trap with him. After some more rolling around, they were finally coming to a stop. Plans really coming together, Raph, Leo said, cramped in the ball with his two brothers. From the side, they hear a small scream. They turned their necks as much as they could to see the once bellhopper now transforming, similar to how they saw the delivery boy from Cannonball Day. When the transformation was complete, the now clumsy bull ran out, but not without breaking a few items first. If that wasn't bad, a few bugs escaped with him when he left. Oh no, Raph shouted, frustrated. Leo, if you just listened to me, we would have gotten the bugs out of here by now. Leo was now annoyed by his older brother's response. We did listen to you, Raph, and that honestly. Donnie stopped listening to his brothers bickering midway through Leo's sentence. When Leo stopped, it became clear that Raph was going to say something more. He couldn't have that. Hey, why don't we continue this classic Raph Leo argument outside the trap, he said before it escalated. Donnie deactivated the trap, releasing the three boys. Once they were released, they all stretched their limbs stiff from the tight enclosure. They all look around, seeing the mess of shattered vases and messed up furniture. See Leo, all this mess would have been avoided if you had listened. Leo took offense to this and was about to say something in response if they weren't interrupted by the ding of the elevator. They all stared to see a lady appear. Oh, Raph muttered under his breath as they watch a line of bellhoppers appear, only to spread a red carpet that leads to the entrance. When they look back at the lady now being carried by two bodyguards carrying her down the stairs, Once at the bottom step she hops off, and looks around. "Well, you've turned my hotel into quite the fizzwinkle," she said idly cheerfully for someone who had her hotel ruined. "You sure that was us?" Raph asked, now determined to get out as soon as possible. "I tell you what, we are totally normal human exterminators. We'll waive our usual fee." But before he could finish, the lady interrupted. "Don't fret. My people will sort out this crackadoo," she interrupted. With a clap of her hands, men started to come around and clean up the place, almost marking it as if they were never there. The boys weren't sure what to do, stunned but how fast the mess was cleaned. "Well, since you have this under control, we'll be heading back to our human office, as humans do," Raph said, trying to leave before the lady could ask questions. "No need for flimflam. You're amongst your kind," she said. They were weirded out by her words, own kind. What did she mean by that? But just as before, she clapped her hands, and all the men clicked their patches, and the next thing you know, the once human employees were now all sorts of beings. Elephants, moose, cows, you name it. The three boys were all stunned immediately, letting their guards drop, taking off the suits with a click of their emblems. "Whoa, you are mutants," Raph said, taken aback by the sight. "Mutants, what strange word you use." "We prefer to call ourselves yokai," she said, turning while motioning for them to follow. "Come, I'll give you the grand tour." Donnie looks towards his older brother, looking for permission to follow. Raph, taking notice of this, nodded, about to follow himself if Leo didn't open his mouth. He talking about something along the lines of not trusting the lady. Raph naturally put him down, following behind with Leo not far after. Why wouldn't they trust her after all? They never had been able to be themselves like this in public, courtesy of their whole situation. When they entered, they were greeted by what they can only assume is a fish mutant. "Yokai level 5 please?" she asked the mutant. "Yes, Big Mama." The fish then turned his attention to the brothers. "Welcome, gentle turtles, to the best hotel in town." The elevator then changed with a wave of his flippers. All of them stared in amazement as they watched the elevator turn into many vibrant colors. The fish as well changes the numbers on the dial, and within just a few seconds they were on the 5th floor. The room was cheering loudly as the yokai fought. The gargoyles seemed relaxed watching the two yokai on the screen duke it out. Michelangelo sat right next to them, with a cup of water in hand. He wasn't paying attention. The last few fights haven't been the most interesting. He was honestly waiting for the champion to come out to fight. He knew that would be the most interesting fight. These were mainly low-level thieves and prisoners that Big Mama used to hype up the crowd before the real show can begin. His eyes began to wander, looking around at the other yokai. Most were either drinking or placing bets on who would win. Eventually, his eyes wandered to the entrance of the sporting lounge. Almost as if on cue, the door opens, and in comes Big Mama. "This is our sporting lounge where you can take in the furious fights of the Battle Nexus," she said to the group behind her. Mikey took a peek at the people she was talking to, only to see the same three turtles from last week. He quickly put up his orange head, hoping they hadn't noticed him. His father would be pissed if he let them find out he was a mutant like them. "Sporting lounge? You mean you can watch wrestling here?" the red one asked enthusiastically. "Why yes, but here we mainly watch the competitors of the Battle Nexus rip each other limb from liability limb," she said cheerfully. The three turtles seemed taken aback by her words. Anyone would be, but they continued to follow her to what Michelangelo can only assume was her office. As they were leaving, he heard Huggins speak up. "Hey, do those turtles look familiar to you?" he asked, clearly taking notice of the turtles as they were leaving the room. "I think I do, but I can't be sure," Munin said without haste, looking at the other turtles in the room. "That's what familiar means," Hugin replied. Michelangelo couldn't help but giggle at antics. They are the same turtles I fought last week." "You know, the same ones I was created with," Michelangelo chimed in. "Oh, yeah, I thought I just knew them from spin class," Hugin groaned at Munin's comment. "Hey, maybe we should follow them," Michelangelo said, already getting up from his seat and heading to the door. Both Hugin and Munin fly in front of him, stopping his pursuit. "Whoa there, kiddo, aren't you grounded?" Michelangelo gasped. "Grounded? Who said?" he cried out. "The boss said you aren't allowed to go on solo missions anymore," Munin stated while Hugging nodded. Michelangelo scoffed, trying to blow off their accusation. "He didn't ground me. That was a, mild suggestion." His comment earned him stares from both the gargoyles that said, "Really? Sorry kid, but you aren't allowed to go on your own," Huggin said. Michael was about to give up until he had an idea. "Okay, so what if you two join me?" Both Hugin and Munin looked at each other, not sure if they should follow along with the team. He said, "No solo mission, so if you two come you can still watch me, and I won't be on a solo mission." He started hoping that they would go for it. Munin shrugged at his companion. "Okay then, but no funny business," Munin said, flying over towards the door the three turtles went through earlier. Michelangelo was visibly excited that they agreed to follow them with him. He had missed being on missions. Immediately following the two gargoyles, they headed over towards Big Mama's office since Michelangelo was the one to suggest that was where they were headed off to. Just as they turned to enter the hall, towards Big Mama's office, they saw the three turtles exit her office as he expected. They all watched from the end of the hall. They can hear their conversation thanks to how loud they were speaking. I don't know about this, Raph. Something feels off about her. The blue one stopped midway as they exited. The snapper stopped and groaned, looking at the slider. Stop being paranoid, Leo. She wants to help. And now with her webs, D here can create something to capture those Osquitus, he said, pointing towards the soft shell that was taking bits of webs off of him. You know, I think I have something for this already. It will need a few tweaks, but it should work, the soft shell said, while inspecting the insides of the bucket he was carrying. See, everything is covered. Let's head back to the lair, the snapper stated as they started to head down the hall. Both the gargoyles hid behind some nearby potted plants to not be seen. Unlike the gargoyles, Michelangelo wasn't small enough to hide behind them. He frantically pulled up his hood and ducked into a nearby closet. It was filled to the brim with cleaning supplies. He waited for the three turtles to pass by. Once he heard footsteps go past the door, he relaxed a bit. That was a close one, he thought. He stayed in just a bit longer to make sure that they were entirely gone. He looks around the closet and couldn't help but chuckle at the number of times he has hidden in there. Michelangelo chuckled as he heard the frantic cries of the Big Mama's bellhops searching for him. How did you manage to lose a 6-year-old? He listened to the fox Yoke shout at the owl. You tried to keep track of him, the owl shouted back. You can rotate your head 180 degrees. You don't have an excuse, he stated back. If we don't find that thing soon, Big Mama will have our heads. The fox continued, starting to walk off down the hall. Oh, we're so getting demoted after this, the owl said, chasing after the fox Yoke. Once Michelangelo heard the footsteps fade away, he finally let out his laughter. He had been holding it. He laughed for what felt like forever at the bellhop's idiocy, until he heard someone from outside the doors. You know, this was not what your training is intended for. He listened to a lady coo from outside. Michelangelo beamed, recognizing the voice, and peeked out the door. Big Mama was leaning on the wall next to the door. She stared at Michelangelo, who now had his full head out the door. There's my angle, she beamed. Michelangelo simply smiled widely and rushed out the door to hug her legs. Big Mama merely smiles at his need for affection and picks him up. You know, if you keep hiding like that, I'll have to put a collar with a bell on you, she said, tickling the young turtle in her arms. She starts to walk in the direction of her office with him. At least your training is proving to be useful, she said as she closes the door behind her. Michael, someone shouted from the outside of the room. He jumped a bit from being pulled out of his train of thought. Mutant, are you good in there? The same voice repeated from beyond the door. He opens the door to see the gargoyles waiting for him. Few thought I was going to have to bust the door open, Mutant said. Sorry, just spaced out, Michael said, stepping out of the closet. Did you see where they went? He asked the gargoyles. Huggins shook his head. No, they are probably long gone by now, he replies. Michael sighs. All right, we'll come back in the morning and see if we can stop them from capturing all the bugs, he replied, walking towards the nearest exit. Both the gargoyles follow, resting on the teen's shoulders as they head back to the hidden city. By the time morning hit, the turtles were already roaming the streets. Leo released a gas into the air, seeming a bit annoyed by his older brother's antic. From atop the rooftop, Donnie was running, holding what looked like a purple briefcase. Junior's powers go, he shouted, throwing the same briefcase, which turned into a flying bike. He jumped off, landing on the bike, and started to track down the Osquitus nearby. He chased them down as he attempted to shoot down the Osquitus with web fluid. After a few shots, he manages to hit one, trapping it near a lamppost. Deadeye Donnie shoots and touches down. Or insert correct sports reference here, he said as a giant claw from the tank picks up the Mosquito, sucking it up. From atop another tower, Michelangelo and the gargoyles were watching. Woo, Baron Draxum is not going to like that, Huggins said. Dib, not telling him, Michael shouted before any of the two gargoyles could shout it. What? No, maybe you have forgotten, but you grounded, mister, Huggins stated. Michelangelo quickly put on the mask Draxum had given him last week, pulling up the hood. Look, they're capturing dozens of Osquitus by the minute. If we waste any more time telling Draxum, he could lose all the Osquitus by the end of the day. Before the gargoyles could counter, the teen had already left, chasing after the giant tank. Did he just? Huggin asked his companion. Yup, he responded. Whelp, Draxum is going to kill us for losing him, Huggins said, heading off towards the hidden city. Man, and we were supposed to have a fun day together, Mutant said, chasing after his companion. Michelangelo followed the turtles the rest of the day, as he suspected they had managed to collect all the bugs not too long after. And now they all went back to Big Mama's hotel. He knew he couldn't just waltz in through the front to enter the hotel without them spotting him. He looks up to the roof, remembering the vents connect straight to Big Mama's quarters. If he makes his way through the vent system, he might be able to catch them off guard. He takes out his fundo and uses it like a grappling hook to head to the top of the Nexus Hotel. Atop the hotel, he sees the vent system and prays the gate off of it. The vents were narrow, a little bit smaller than he remembers. But then again, the last time he ventured into these vents was when he was 6. Greeny boos he heard through the vents. Gifts for Big Mama. He starts to hurriedly crawl through the vents to reach a gateway that shows the insides of Big Mom's quarters. Osquitus. But we're almost out of web. Good. He heard what he could assume was the red dude Fantampules. And look at that marvelous device you've made me, she said. Michelangelo finally reached the vents gate and could see the guards start to surround the turtles. Oh, glad you like it, but actually it's mine, the purple turtle said, closing the bike back into a briefcase. Why are your extra large bellhops standing so close to us all of a sudden? He asked as one of the bellhops snagged the Osquitus out of Red's hands. So Big Mama wants the Osquitos for herself. Yeah, Dad not going to like that. Michael thought to himself, I have to get in there, he said, trying to push the vent open. It didn't budge. Oh, they'll just be taking those bugs, and your device. My battle nexus, thank you, she said. He pushed again, this time I move popping out a bolt. Wait, you run the barbaric battle nexus, Red said, astonished by this new development. Michelangelo gave one final push against the vent and it burst open. He grabbed the vent before it could fall to the floor below. He paused, listening to see if anyone heard him. Yes, Big Mama is kinda the bee's knee down in the hidden city, she said, hoisting herself up to the giant TV in the room. Good, that hadn't taken notice of the noise. He quietly crawled out, stepping onto a spider web. The screen flashes on, showing a less than exciting fight at the battle nexus of the Bellhopper from before, and a fish mutant. You see, the pickings have gotten a bit slim lately, but with these Osquitus, I will have more wonderful mutant warriors, and they will be more exciting than ever, she stated. Michelangelo could stand there for long. He had to act fast before Big Mama took the bugs. He pulls out his Kusari fundo. He jumps down, wrapping his fundo on the bellhopper that had the bug. He pulls the bellhop up into the air just to slam him down into the floor and knock him unconscious. The jar that was filled with what seemed like hundreds of Osquitos flew up into the air. Michael catches the jar, tucking it under his arms. He hears Big Mama's voice from behind him. My angle, is that you? He felt shivers run down his spine. He turns to look at her. Hello, Big Mama. I'm sorry to intrude, but these do not belong to you, he stated, holding the jar almost protectively. Oh, Angie, you dare steal from Big Mama? He didn't respond, just activated his fundo as the demon inside it awakened. Very well then, she said, and motioned for the guards to take him down. Both Donnie and Raph watched as the masked intruder fended off the mini bellhoppers. It was the same masked person they met last week, that Leo, at least, dubbed Goatface. Despite his voice being muffled a bit by the mask, it was clear that he was a kid. He sounded young, probably around their age, but yet there he stood, trying his best to fight off the many large bellhops. Not to mention he was succeeding at it for the most part, with some bellhops being thrown across the room. Okay, Leo, you were right, she was not trustworthy, Raph said, but when he received no response, he looked around to see Leo had disappeared. Hey, where did he? Said, guys, over here. He heard Leo's voice to the side of him, a bit far away. There's the elevator. He saw Leo peeking out his head inside the elevator. Both Donnie and Raph look at each other, and then back over to see that Big Mama's men have managed to capture Goatface, and have retrieved the Osquitus back. They both tried to hurry to meet Leo in the elevator, only to have an owl and Seal Yoke stand in front of them. Don't think we forgot about you two kiddos, the seal said. They both tried to make a break for it, but they were both pushed into the circle of the bellhops next to Goatface, whose arms were currently restrained. My, Angel, I'm very disappointed in you. This act will not go unpunished, I'm sure you know that, Big Mama said. From the corner of Donnie's eye, he sees Goat's face flinch a bit from the notion. So he knows Big Mama, Donnie thought to himself. Now what to do, you lots, she continued, rubbing her chin. Oh, I know, she said enthusiastically. I'll have you all in my battle nexus, she stated. What? No, we won't be fighting for you, Raph shouted back to the spider lady. She merely giggled at the boy's comment. Oh heavens no, you and your brother here will be my bubbly arena clowns, she said, gesturing to Raph and Donnie. Okay, you listen here, lady, we will not be, Donnie tried to say, only to slip on a banana peel, causing him to slip tumbling down, and taking Raph and Goatface down with him. Big Mama simply chucks, but imminently stops, looking around for something. Wait, where's the blue one? She said. They all hear a ding and look towards the elevator to see a glimpse of the slider leaving as the elevator door closes. Find the blue one, she shouted as all the bellhoppers ran towards the elevator. Two stayed behind and restrained both Raph and Donnie's arms behind their backs. Just as the bellhops had the elevator door open, Big Mama stopped them. "Wait, I've got a better idea," she said. "Gus, she sings songs out." Michael groaned at the yokai's name. "Gus? What kind of mutant is named Gus?" Donnie questions. A wall from behind him opens to reveal a giant dog yokai. Both Raph and Donnie back away from the rough silhouette of the dog. The silhouette come into the light to reveal a dog, and howled before turning to Big Mama. "Yup, that's a Gus," Raph said. "Whoa, dude, is this about me chewing all those slippers?" "I totally didn't do it," Gus said pleadingly, now on his knees in front of Big Mama. "Never mind the stupid slippers. Get their scent and find the missing turtle," she said, pointing at Raph and Donnie. "On it, bruh," he sniffed. Donnie, who flinched at how uncomfortably close the dog was to him. The dog backs up, turns to Raph. Raph was trying his best not to show his emotion, but one snarl from the dog was enough to make him slightly flinch, and back a bit up at its closeness too. The dog backed up, and seemed to grow spikes along its back and forearms, and run off to find their blue-clad brother. "Take this splendiferous ingenious confabulation in my safe," Big Mama said, handing one of the bellhoppers Donnie's bike briefcase. Flattered but also betrayed, Dunn piped up. "And take them to my battle nexus," she said, pointing to the seal and the owl yokai, then the three boys. They force them up and start ushering them to the elevator door. They enter the elevator, and the two turtles start talking. "I can't believe he ditched us," Raph said. "Honestly, the audacity. I think it's safe to say that he has kicked off this team," Donnie replied. Raph shot him a look. "Okay, fine. Is it at least on the table?" Donnie asked his elder brother. Raph groaned. "Donnie, maybe you haven't, but notice we're currently prisoners to a literal crime boss," he stated. The elevator opens to the 4th floor. The two guards push the three forward into the hall. "I can't believe we're going to be rodeo clowns," Donnie said as they all walked through the hallway. "Do you two ever stop talking?" Michelangelo spoke up. Both Donnie and Raph stared, not expecting him to talk. "So it speaks," Donnie said, only to feel Raph slightly shove him with his shoulders. "What?" Donnie asked, wanting to know why he was shoved. Michael just sighed and faced forward, where he sees the portal to the battle nexus in front of them. He thinks to himself, "Am I going back out into that dreaded arena? Here we are, gateway to the battle nexus. Say goodbye to New York Turtles," the seal yokai said. "This can't be happening," he thought to himself, but only to have his thoughts interrupted by the two bellhoppers shoving them forward to the portal. Michelangelo could feel his breath hitch as he drew closer to the portal. A laundry bin suddenly rolls in the way of the group, causing them to stop in their tracks. "Hey, laundry bin in the middle of the hallway," the owl yokai said, turning to the seal yokai. "Classic trap," the seal responded, shoving past Michael. "And Raph, I shall investigate," he continued, approaching the bin and removing the clothing. "Oh, it's empty. Guess we can let our guard down," the seal said, looking back to the owl. "That sounds about right," the owl said, joining him at the laundry basket. Just as both the bellhops' backs were turned, a large sword appears through a vent and struggles to make a circle as small blue sparks fly. "Wait, is that?" Raph whispered. "I think it is," Donnie said as they all watched the sword make a portal in front of them. The bellhops take one step back and barely miss the portal. Not a moment later, there was a loud creak from the vents, causing the two bellhops to turn around and look at the ceiling. Leo, who was in the vents, fell straight into his portal when the vents gave out from under him. Without a moment of hesitation, both Raph and Donnie jump in after him. Michael looks to see the bellhops ready to grab him before he could jump in. Noticing the portal was about to close, he jumps in, joining the three turtles. They all fell through an elevator until finally, all four landed in a hallway. They all groaned in pain from the fall. "You're welcome for saving you," Leo said. He stood up and noticed that Goatface had followed them through the portal. "Oh, you were not supposed to follow us," he said, staring. Michael rolled his eyes, but none of the others would know since his mask covered the entirety of his face. Hello. We're still restrained," Donnie chimed in. "Oh, right," Leo said, turning to his twin. He uses his oddity and frees both Raph and Donnie from their restraints, leaving Michael stuck in his. "You know, if you haven't left us, we all could have saved ourselves together." Raph started rubbing his now free wrist. What Leo responded, he was about to persist further, but was interrupted by a howl from down the hall. They all turned to investigate the noise to see the yokai Gus, who was charging at them. The three turtles panic. Leo and Donnie both hid behind their older brother. Michael looks around to see if he could flee and leave them to deal with Gus. His eyes spot a bright green ball under a small table. Convenient, he thought as he uses his feet to dribble it over in front of the three panicking turtles. He stops and juggles it with his feet. "Hey Gus, check this out," he cried, still juggling the small ball with his feet since his arms were still restrained to his back. This caused Gus to stop in his track and stare at the bright green ball. "What is that?" The dog frantically watches the ball excitingly. Michael kicks the ball down the other side of the hall. "OMG, I'm going," get that thing and bring it back, he cheers, as he practically runs over both Raph and Donnie, now chasing the ball. Leo watches as the dog disappears around the corner before looking at his brothers, asking them, "I'm sorry, who was that?" "Gus, who was sent to eat you," Donnie replied. "In that case, maybe it's time to blow this balloon factory," Leo said as he pressed a button to summon an elevator. "Hey, what about this guy?" Raph said, grabbing Michael's shoulder before he could escape the three turtles and free himself. He pushes him forward in front of the group. "What about him?" Donnie asked. "We can't just leave him here," Raph stated. "I'm sorry, but why not?" Leo asked his older brother. "What if he goes and warns Draxum?" he said, this time holding onto Michael's shoulder as he once again tried to run for it. "So what? He's restrained, he won't do anything," Donnie said, while gesturing to Michelangelo's arms to emphasize his point. "I agree with the purple one, you should let me go," Michelangelo chimes in. "I agree with the purple one, you should let me go," Michelangelo chimes in. "See, he agrees with me," Donnie responds. Raph eyed his younger brother before directing his attention to Michelangelo, who only stared back with the black-white eyes of his mask. "I don't know, I say we bring him along just in case," Donnie groaned at his elder brother's order. "Fine, but once we're safe at home I can brag about how right I was," Leo said, entering the now opened elevator. "And in turn how wrong you were. So let's do it," he continued. Raph nudges Michelangelo into the elevator, only complying knowing he can't take them down with his arms tied to his back. "I got Leo, but we're not going without Donnie's Bug Slayer and the Osquitos," Raph said, entering the elevator, with Donnie right behind. "We can't leave them here in Queen Eight Legs' hands," he continued. "We'll, since we indubitable have no idea where the slider tried to respond, only to be interrupted by the eldest." "Spill the beans, Leo. Every time you say indubitably, I know you're up to something," Raph interrupted. Leo gave in. "Fine, everything is in Big Mama's office, and we can risk our lives trying to get it right now," he said, clicking the button in the elevator to Big Mama's office. "And that's exactly what we're going to do." "Guy, stealth mode," he cried pretty loud for ninjas. "Or stealth mode," Leo said, correcting his brother. "Are they always like this?" Michael says aloud. Donnie, who was next to him, replies, "You have no idea." The elevator dings, signaling that they have arrived at Big Mama's office. Leo and Donnie swiftly and quietly exit the elevator. Raph quietly exits, as well, dragging Michael with him into the room. Donnie, while looking around, almost drops a water pitcher with his tech bow. He drops his bow staff and catches the pitcher before it could hit the floor. Raph quickly shushes him. Leo was currently inspecting the wall before he stops at a painting. He pokes at the eyes of the painting to reveal a giant safe hidden behind with magic. Donnie drops the pitcher, letting it shatter, and picks up his tech bow and pushes Leo to the side. He pushes a button on the staff, turning it into a working saw. "This calls for the delicate touch of a genius," he says as the chainsaw wires on, screaming as it touches the safe. Raph covers his ears from the noise. Michael puts his head towards his shoulders in an attempt to muffle the noise. "Is anyone going to cover the sound?" he said, not sure if anyone even heard him. "This could take a couple of hours," Donnie shouts, competing with his saw still screaming. "Or we could do this," Leo shouted, turning all combinations to one. The saw dies down as Leo finishes the combination, as the safe opens, revealing many treasures, goals, ancient artifacts, but most importantly the Osquitos and Donnie's Bug Slappers. The three turtles were in awe by the room and enter, grabbing the stuff in the vault and leaving Michael in the room. He took a step back as they all had their back turns. He turns to make run for it, but stops in his tracks when he feels something hit his feet. He looks down and sees the same green ball he threw earlier. "Oh great, Gus is back," he heard a snarl from the elevator. He looks back up to see Gus at the elevator door. "Don't start a game of fetch. You can't finish," he said, pointing at the four of them. From behind they heard Big Mama. They turned to see she was just behind the chair the entire time they were in there. No, dears. This simply will not do." She turns her chair around with an almost menacing squeak. "If there's one rule, Big Mama," has she tried to continue. "Is it forgive and forget," Leo interrupted. "Is it don't chew on the guest slippers," Raph continued. "Is it Ohm's law?" Donnie also followed in with his brothers. "No," Big Mama, now frustrated, shouts, turning back into her spider form, shooting her webs at the four of them. Michael ended up getting stuck with Donnie in the web goop. They were sent across the room from the goop. They struggled vaguely, only stopping when Big Mama approached them. "My rule is no stealing from Big Mama," she said, towering over the four boys. A small wiring sound was heard from the side, then a large explosion was heard. "And my rule is no stealing from me," a loud booming voice cried. They all looked to see it was Baron Draxum. How much Michael wished he could crawl into a hole right now. Big Mama and Draxum seemed to have engaged in a small conversation. "Those are my property, fetch them, my pets," Draxum shouted out as both Huggin and Munnin hop off his shoulders. They were both attacked by Gus before they could even go after the Osquitos. Michelangelo merely groaned as Draxum went on to talk about eliminating the human race. But it didn't take long as Draxum had charged Big Mama, and they were both engaged in combat. It didn't take long before vines were spreading across the room, chasing after Big Mama. The 4 boys who were still confined to their webbed cocoons had to roll to avoid any incoming vines and debris from above. Raph had managed to roll to his side and was sat next to Leo. "What is this? Another one of your success-proof plans?" Leo said as some of Ralph's weight was crushing his side. "Yes, I mean no. Look, use my shell." They all see that Raph's spikes were poking out of the webbing. Leo, being the closest, starts to saw off the webbing using the spikes on Raph's shell. Donnie, on the other hand, didn't move as he was currently trapped with Goatface in the same webbing. But it didn't matter anyways as a large spike was shot at them, freeing both of them. He looks to see where the spike originated from. He sees Draxum's hand pointed at them and assumes he shot a spike at them to free Goatface. "You stay here and stop anyone that could get in my way," Draxum told Goatface, who only nodded, pulling out his Kusari Fundo. Draxum turns to his minions, telling them to follow with the Osquitos. Donnie looks to his brothers to see both of them were free and had taken notice that Draxum was leaving for the roof. "Leo, portal to the roof now," Raph shouted out of panic. "There you go, telling me what to do again," Leo started but realized what he meant. "Actually, that's a plan I can get behind," Leo said, using his Adachi to make a circle on the floor, and a portal flared up. Leo stood there impressed that he managed to even open a portal. "Can we name today Leo Day?" he said to his older brother. Raph stared at him with an annoyed look, but just past Leo a bright ball of orange hurtling towards them. Raph pushed Leo into the portal before jumping in himself. Michelangelo ran over trying to reach the portal before it could close. Donnie jumps in front of him, turning the end of his tech bow into a rocket and swings it at Michelangelo. He was sent flying to the end of the room, colliding with the wall and leaving a dent. The portal behind Donnie closes. "Well, I'm going to regret this," Donnie mumbled to himself as he saw the portal close. He looks back to see Goatface getting back up and about to send the ball hurtling towards Donnie, but a web shot at his hand, pinning it to the wall. Donnie, stunned by the action, suddenly feels the presence of someone behind him. He turns his head to see who it was, only to be stared down by Big Mama, who managed to get back up from her fight with Draxum earlier. Donnie lets out a nervous chuckle before one of Big Mama's larger hands strikes him, sending him across the room, colliding with a Goatface. They break through the wall into another room, a closet of sorts. They both pick themselves up only to see dozens of webs coming at them. Michael quickly uses his fun to grab a giant box, putting it in front of them to create a blockade. Both he and Donnie hide behind the box as they feel it vibrate from the webs hitting it. The box was about to give out as a few webs managed to make a hole. "May I suggest a truce?" Goatface blurted out after another hole was made. Donnie looks over to him only to be met with the white eyes on his mask. "A truce?" Donnie puzzles, thinking about it for a moment. "Fine, but cross me, and you will rue the name." "Dynamite, Donnie," Donnie said. Unknown to Donnie was the puzzled look Michael was giving him under the mask. Donnie takes out his briefcase, which was packed away in his shell. He throws it in front of them, and the briefcase turns into a bike once more. Donnie runs over to the bike. "Hop on," he says, getting on. Goatface waits a moment before he runs over, hopping on the back of Donnie's bike. The bike took off, flying back into Big Mama's office. Big Mama continuously tries to shoot them as they flew around. "Got a plan here?" Michael asked Donnie, who was driving the bike, to avoid the mini web fluids. "Got one, but I need you to cover me," Donnie said, maneuvering the bike to avoid it getting stuck in Big Mama's webbing. Michael uses his Fundo and stats to burn and block off the incoming webs. This allowed Donnie a clear path. Big Mama realizes that the webs are barely going through. She grabs her desk and throws it at them. Michael uses his Fundo and cuts through the desk. She was about to jump and grab them only to feel one of her legs stuck. She looks to see her own webbing has trapped her to the floor. Donnie shoots 3 more, making her stuck to the floor. She pulls, struggling for a bit to get out of the webbing. "That's not going to hold long. We need to leave," Goatface yells out. "Agreed," Donnie said, already heading to the hole in the wall Draxum had made earlier. They get through just in time, since Big Mama had managed to free herself and tried to chase them only to be out of reach. As a last resort, she shoots out a web and manages to hit Michael's ankle, pulling him back. He grabs onto the end of the bike, holding on as both he and the bike slowly get pulled backward. Donnie takes notice of this when his bike is abruptly jolted back. He puts the bike on full blast, the engine roar as the bike and Big Mama enter a game of tug of war. Goatface is now holding on to the back of the bike with all his strength to prevent his limbs from being stretched any further. Donnie looks back at the screen of the bike and sees that it only has 1 web left to shoot. He turns back. "Only 1 web left, better make this count," Donnie thinks to himself. He turns to face Goat, who is still struggling to hold on, and shouts, "You need to let go." Goatface was taken aback by this statement until finally, he responded. What for, he struggles to say. So you can watch me plummet to my doom, he blurted out. Donnie, kinda annoyed by his antics, he looks back to see Big Mama is now attempting to pull them both in. Knowing they don't have much time, yells back, just trust Emmy. He only receives silence and a blank stare on Goatface's mask. Then he let go, falling fast. Donnie texted, quickly turning back to the controls and starting to drive the bike forward, then going up to make a loop around. He shoots the last of the web fluid at Big Mama. She falls backward on the web's impact, being thrown back into her office. Donnie shot down, chasing after Goatface, who was still falling. He swerved just before either of them could hit the ground, catching Goatface. He turns upward, stopping mid-flight. Donnie takes a breath as the adrenaline calms down. Did I really just save a villain? He thought to himself as the adrenaline left his body. Why, you okay? He turned to check if Goatface was still there. Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for the save, Goatface replied. Donnie's eyes go wide. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. He stared at Goatface, who stared back, but not with the same look from the mask. This time with genuine eyes looking back at him. A look of a young teen. No, not just a teen mutant turtle. What? Goatface asked, since Donnie looked as if he had just seen something. You're a turtle, Donnie said. From the look on Goatface's face, he was taken aback by Donnie's question. Goatface reaches up to feel his face. His eye went wide from not feeling the mask that his father had given him just little over a week ago. He looks at the ground below, still on the bike. Donnie follows his gaze to see below a smashed mask on the black concrete. He could feel Goatface stare at him, to which he reciprocates. Goatface lets a slip through his lips before he reaches into his stash, pulling out a small ball. He slams the ball against the bike. Then the whole area is covered in smoke. Donnie closes his eyes and covers his nostrils. He felt a bit of weight leave the bike, and within a few moments, the smoke clears. Donnie looks to see Goatface has left and is nowhere to be found. Donnie was tempted to go and search for him, wanting to get to the bottom of this. Donnie, you there? He hears the screen on the bike say. It was Raph. Where are you? Raph continued through the screen. Donnie looks around one more time, hoping to catch a glimpse of Goat before he left. He sighed, trying to shake off the events before responding. I'm on my way. Michelangelo stood at what used to be the front door to his father's lab, now covered in caution tape. He swallowed a lump in his throat and passes through the tape. Walking through the crumbling halls of the lab, he spots his father in the middle of the room. Michael was about to speak, but his father beat him to it. You're late, he said in an almost flat tone. Michael freezes in his track. I'm sorry, Lord Draxum, I got held up, Michael said, bowing a bit. He straightened up and waited for his father to continue. But instead of a response, he was met with silence. The silence was crushing. It made him feel uneasy. He shifted a bit before speaking. May I enter? He asked as he was only standing at the doorframe. There was at least a minute of silence before Draxum responded. You may, he said. Michelangelo walked over, standing by his father's side. Once again silence. He notices the gargoyles were nowhere in sight. They must be in their chamber somewhere, lying on a dog bed. Lord Draxum, I'm sorry, but where he tried to ask, wondering why they were just standing there. You disobeyed direct orders, Draxum interrupted him. So that's why he's mad, he thought to himself. Michelangelo has now locked eyes with his father. His gaze was intimidating, and some bits of anger. I'm sorry, I just thought if he tried to speak only to be interrupted again. You disobeyed my direct orders. Michael could hear his father's anger rise. Draxum took a breath, and then continued. You were told to not pursue the turtles anymore, he continued. Michelangelo gulped before speaking. They were capturing the Osquitus by the second. I thought if I just watched from afar and collected them when they weren't looking, you wouldn't have to risk showing your face in the hidden city, Michael stated, trying his best to not stutter. So you chose to disobey my orders, refuse to listen to the gargoyles who were in charge at the time, and interfere with Big Mama, Draxum said, glaring at Michelangelo now. Michael didn't respond, only stared at the floor, not wanting to stare any longer. You are forbidden to return to above, Draxum said. Michelangelo didn't say anything, just continued to stare at the floor. And since you clearly can't be trusted on your own, you instead help me in figuring out how to eliminate the turtles, Draxum continued. Michelangelo breaks his gaze from the floor to stare to look at his father, stunned by his words. Just a little over a week ago he spoke about capturing them, and now he wants to eliminate them. Come, we must get to work, Draxum said, walking off into the hallway. Michelangelo followed, still confused about his father's sudden change of heart. The three boys make it to the lair, greeted by the white noise of the TV in the main area. Entering, they see their dad has fallen asleep on the couch again. Raph had left, most likely to get pillows and blankets for Dad. Leo was still standing next to Donnie. Leo yawns almost exaggeratedly, stretching out his arm in the process. All right, I'm calling it a night. I'll be in my room if Raph needs me, Leo said, walking off to his room. Get some sleep, Donnie said as his twin walked off. Yeah, you two, ya hypocrite, Leo said, waving Donnie off, disappearing down a sewer line that was converted to a hallway to make it livable. Donnie was then left alone in the main area. The only sign of life was his father's light snoring and the static sound from the TV. He stood there recalling the events from today. Donnie was then left alone in the main area. The only sign of life was his father's light snoring and the static sound from the TV. He stood there recalling the events from today. Another turtle mutant has to be a coincidence. What was it Big Mama said there? Are you okay wandering around too? Perhaps he was a yokai. Donnie, you good? Donnie was pulled out of his trance to see his brother had returned with a pillow and blanket as he predicted. Donnie let out, to which Raph calmly responded. Raph was asking if you were good, he said again. Donnie shook his head, clearing out the thought a moment before. Oh yeah, sorry, I'm just tired, he responded. Raph frowned. What did I say about staying up all night to work on projects? Raph said. Donnie rolled his eyes, not wanting to be lectured about his sleeping habits again. Yeah, I know. Look, I'll head over to my room right now, Donnie said, walking in the general direction to his room. And sleep right? Raph asked as he was leaving, to which Donnie responded with night, Raph. Donnie entered his room, closed the curtains, and sat in his bed as the thoughts from before filled his head. He recalls Leo's news of Draxum creating them. Could they be related to Goat facing the same person they fought a week prior? The thoughts dangle around and around his head. They would have not allowed him to sleep even if he tried. He gets up from his and walks over to his lab, keeping a lookout for his brothers, not wanting to disturb them nor have them asking questions about why he was up so late. He enters the lab as the lights turn on and a purple hue consumes the room. He walks over to a large computer in the room. The screen lights up with the voice of an AI Donnie has been working on, saying, "Hello Donatello, how may I help you?" Donnie sat down in his swivel chair in front of the desk. Pull all recording files from today, and also check the bug slayer for any traces of DNA. He asked the AI. Of course they responded. In the screen several files pop up, ranging from audio recordings and actual footage from street cameras and his own. Donnie wanted to get to the bottom of this. He wanted to know if this bother turtle had anything to do with their mutation, and if so, could they know? Impossible. He was most likely a yokai who worked for Draxum that happened to be around their age. Right? Notes. Hi, hello, welcome to the end. Did you like it? I hope so, cause this has been in works for a month now. For the next chapter it's probably not going to be as long as this one, but then again, I said the same thing for this one too. Also, it comes when it comes, since my sanity can't handle weekly updates. I do post about the chapters on my TikTok, error code 400, so you can check there too.